Let me give you some more examples about the mythology of what they call the legal justice system. That's to give it a label in order to reinforce a kind of mythology rather than a pursuit of truth. I was once called in as an expert witness for a client of mine who was somehow involved in some kind of drug situation. As I entered into the hearing with my extensive knowledge about this particular woman and her treatment, I did not get 2 words out of my mouth before I was totally discounted, rejected, and practically thrown out of the court on a technicality, basically based on BS. They did not want to hear the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I was in the middle of a power struggle between competing attorneys. Now let's get that real clear now. One attorney is invested in proving his case, not finding the truth. He has a profit motive. He has a power motive for gaining success in his viewpoint coming across. The other attorney has the same agenda. Innocence versus guilt, not truth. So they present stories, and one of the ways that each attorney can win their case is to eliminate any kind of story, any kind of truth that I may say that could help this case discover more truth. Hold it right there. Since we live in a society that's based on power and it deals with adversarial positions, we might use the metaphor of the gladiators or a boxing match. However, you have professional attorneys and a referee called a judge who dresses himself up in a specific kind of uniform. It is a mask. He is supposed to not judge the innocence or guilt, but he is supposed to referee between the 2 different adversaries who are creating and manufacturing their own story, their own viewpoint. Somewhere in the midst of this, they hope to arrive at some truth and nothing but the truth. Or let me see if I can come up with some other kind of examples where I've seen this happen. I was once in a case. I was living in Florida, and next door to me was a homegrown zoo. And they had an adversary. They had opponents who were part of the animal rights movement. And the animal rights movement came to this zoo. And somehow a fight broke out in the front of the property. And the injured party, who was part of the animal rights group, came running to my house seeking some kind of assistance and claiming that the owner of that property had somehow injured her camera or something and did something to it. What I found out is I later ended up in court to tell my side of the story. Now, I didn't get a chance to even open my mouth to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, even though I was sworn under an oath, because they use technicalities, devices, to manipulate a situation in favor of a particular viewpoint, a myth. So we never arrive at truth, we arrive at an approximation, a myth. And what happens with a myth, if you keep telling it over and over and over again, eventually people believe that the myth is a fact. And that's what we have to look out for. And if I want to enter into the religious arena, in the history of my tradition, the Jewish tradition, there was this whole thing about the Messiah. The Messiah is coming and coming and coming. Sooner or later, that mythology is going to take on the aspects of a fact. And sooner or later, the Messiah will show up several times, different people. And it shows up in different religions. But it starts out as a myth, and after a while, people believe the myth as if it's a fact. And it all starts in primitive times when our ancestors sat around the fire telling family stories, enhancing ancestral views of struggles with animals, with survival, and before you know it, these stories get elaborated, they get glorified, and they take on a mythological quality, and after a while, they start to appear as if they were facts, when they're basically based on themes, motifs, stories, fictionalized accounts of origins, and they're enhanced, and they're made to appear holy, but they're made really to justify the family's existence and identity. But there's a whole mythology that people create in their own minds, and you need to be able to differentiate what is deep truth for you and what kind of mythology you create about who you are. There is the real you, and then there's the mythological you. The more you repress your real self, the more you repress your real feelings and emotions, the more you have to create a mythology about life, other people, and who you are. Case in point, paranoia. What is paranoia? It's personal mythology. Let me change the topic quickly. I was treating a man who was complaining that his wife was accusing him of all kinds of emotional abuse. I interviewed her, and before you know it, I was being abused by her. Oh my goodness. So he found himself in a court of law, and she was making all kinds of accusations. Eventually, he got out from under all that, but her stories, the mythology that she created, was based on what I could see as paranoia. Her own suppressed pain that she was acting out, and she fictionalized her marriage and created this monster. And this man was looking at me and looking at everybody else. Me, a monster? How could this be? Here I am in a court of law, he's saying, and I'm being accused of all these horrible things. How do I get out from under this? We need to take a look at our own personal mythologies. We need to be able to separate myth from reality. Not that myth is bad. Myth has the quality of transcending us to another world. Sometimes a world that is far more beautiful and more real than the world we find here on the earth. I'll get to that later.